fashion. So it doesn't surprise me that Lucas was on set a lot, because he of the people who've done Star Wars anything, Filoni is the one person that he's given his personal blessing to, like, yo, you got it, go. So he just, so that's kind of like, as far as Star Wars is concerned, like, that's in every way conceivable, he is the heir apparent. You know what I mean? Like, he's the guy. Like, I'm 100% of the belief that if KK gets the boot, he's the guy. There's no question in my mind. They'd be idiots to have anybody else in charge besides him. Or at the very minimum, make it like a two-headed beast where like kind of like a Zaslav, Saffron and Gunn situation. Gunn is very obviously going to be the story guy. He's going to be the one. He's going to be the Feige crafting sort of the overarching. He's the creative mind. Yeah. So I think you make Filoni that guy, and you have whoever replaces it. God forbid if something about Kathleen Kennedy that I really like the idea of her being in charge. I guess because she's the tether to Lucas, is in so much as the job that she's done is questionable at best, unfortunately. But yeah, I think if you reorganize Lucasfilms, it has to be with him at least as co-head, with Filoni as co-head.
Yeah, I'm reading the article as a laugh. It's like on the set of The Mandalorian, director and writer Dave Filoni was given some tough love and guidance from George Lucas when the legend visited the set. The creator of Star Wars has been minimally involved in the franchise since he sold it to Disney. To showcase that point, fans only recently learned that Lucas' true feelings about Rogue One. According to the film's director and writer, Tony Gilroy, the icon, quote unquote, loved it. And Lucas offered some nice, quote unquote, nice little comments for Dave Filoni about the Clone Wars final season as well.
Yeah, because I think, and again, aside from noticing Filoni, I think Gareth Edwards was the first one to really branch out. Not the first one, but at the same time on that level. For the movies was the Filoni of the movies to branch it out and say, hey, this is a sandbox. We play in it. We don't need to have everything be a reference to what George did. Like we got, if you're going to play in the sandbox, expand it in a way that amplifies the other experience. He loved that because it made his films look so much good. Yes. It made them look so much better.
Made him look like a friggin' genius.
Yep.
Yeah. So he's looking at that and he's like, yo, they took one line of idea from my mythology and turned it into something that is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And Garrett Edwards understood that.
That's pretty. I mean, I guess. Oh, so he visited the set when the first appearance of Ashoka. That's pretty cool. On Mando.
Oh, that's his boy. That's his son.
Man, that's cute.
That is his son.
But I told you, he loves Ashoka. He loves that character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why there's no, like I said, there's no comic book version of her. There's no off books of it, no novels, none of that shit.
Filoni got that in a headlock. He is not letting anybody else touch it.
That's the one character that has not been in anywhere else but the animated series.
Right. Yeah, because I was wondering if she was going to pop up in the video game. But
none of it. None. She was in. Was she in Force Unleashed, the first one?
No.
Oh, there was another character of the same race. That's what it was. Yeah. It was. That's right. All right, I'm gonna do a proper intro. Welcome everybody to messed up already. Welcome everybody to Blerdlines. This is your man Can. With me as always is
Joshua Oppenheimer,
as well as
tossing a coin for your professor.
And we're back talking about Witcher. Both parts have dropped, and we finally have all watched it, and we are singing. Our favorite bard is back singing some tunes. Our favorite Witcher is back killing monsters. Yep. And everyone is very good looking while doing it.
Yeah, it's amazing how everybody on that show is like really good looking.
Like ridiculously good. It's like kind of crazy. Like there'll be like mud, blood, and guts, and then like makeup, perfect.
Right.
But yeah. Actually, I this third season, part 1 and 2, even though I know it's gonna, we all know where it's going for the next season or whatever, but for this season, I actually really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with it. There's a lot of good, entertaining things that was going on. From the production and like costuming and everything else, like that shit was awesome. Like I was saying to D'Angelo, I was like, the every person of color that was on the show, their hair and makeup was freaking flawless. And it was like that one thing that a lot of Black actors always talk about when they're doing movie sets is like usually their hair and makeup, it's always like a white person that kind of knows Black hair or something to that effect. But on this one specifically, every Black woman that was on the show, whether she was a fairy, a freaking elf, or a human, or this or that, like braids was tight, dreads looked good. Like,
yeah,
shit was amazing.
Yeah, no, so I've been reading a lot about the reception, and it's kind of gotten mixed reviews this season, even though I agree with you. I enjoyed this season a lot. I think for me, the enjoyment also came from having recently read the books that this particular season is based on. And I got to say that as far as like the adaptation that they're working with in terms of the source material, they change a lot of things, but they keep the essence of Sapkowski's narrative intact. And I think that's what's going over a lot of these people who are complaining about changing the race of certain characters or the way they look, or, these little small, minute details, are losing the fact that, at least for the most part, they're maintaining the story that he tells in The Witcher. I mean, the Witcher books aren't like extremely complex. Like, he even admitted that he didn't write them with them in mind to be visual counterparts. So, the fact that they are able to kind of churn out, there are some aspects that I think is weird that don't come from the book, but a lot of it is really good. And like, the first episode, it opens with an amazing fight scene in which you see Geralt, Ciri, and Yennefer on the run from, all the various kingdoms and factions and enemies that are looking to capture Princess Cirilla. And it was a great moment because it's the first time I think that a fully trained Ciri is fighting alongside Geralt.
Yep.
And they have that show, for all of its flaws, one of the things, other than the costuming and the makeup and the casting that it gets right, is the fight choreography.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, I looked at I was watching one of the BTSs around it, I think for the last episode, and they were talking about that, how like, the fight choreography is just as important as the actual show itself. And so getting a lot of those shots and stuff on how the cameramen are like, in the thick of the choreo with all the fighters, they have their camera, they're running around, dipping and diving, all this stuff while everyone's fighting. And that adds to the level of character for a lot of the filming of the choreo, because the choreo is definitely on point. And I like it that it changes so much, especially from the magic fighting, from the sword fighting, from just all. I mean, they give a good balance, even when it comes to the CG monsters. Which, again, from a concept art perspective, I love all the monsters they fleshed out. They all looked very like unique. It didn't look like a throwaway from like Game of Thrones or a throwaway from like Lord of the Rings. It had its own lived-in situation, and but I thought the choreography helps with that aspect of it, because then in this season you finally get to see Ciri actually do something. Besides crying and pouting about her fate,
training and failing and training and failing.
Exactly. Like now she's actually kind of a badass. You're like, oh, okay, you've been learning. You out here tracking, and she's using magic, she's using fighting. She's not, plus, one of the things I do like is like she is a young girl, so she doesn't have the strength that she would have. Like the one thing about the skinny white woman is kicking everybody's ass movies that was popular for about 5 years. You had 115 pound woman like knocking out a 6'5", 300 pound person, and you're like, okay. Where like this one, she might be fighting someone, but she's still small, and they use that to their advantage. And they show if you're small and you have skills, you would do this, do that. But if someone was bigger than you, they would 100% put you in a chokehold and body slam you.
Absolutely. They don't skimp on the fight details and the training with her, and differentiating between how she trains with the Witcher and with Geralt versus how she trains with the sorceress and Yennefer with her magic, and all in between that. It's one of the things in the books the themes is that those three form a family: father, daughter, mother, in which ironically there's lots of irony in that relationship. One, Geralt can't ever have children of his own, and neither can Yennefer. And also, but Ciri's parents they died, years before she was old enough. So Sapkowski played a lot with the theme and concept of destiny, and those three sort of being made for each other because of the different circumstances that they had. The whole point with Geralt is that he's neutral, but he's totally, he keeps getting, as a Witcher, pulled further and further into this where he has to actually choose a side. And so for him, it's like simple, he picks Ciri and Yennefer. That's his side. So the show is keeping up with following that trajectory. I think the only unfortunate thing, but I don't want to talk about that yet. I want to talk about the way that the series changes this season, because
I was going to say about that. Like, I would say one of the things that talking to people about Witcher is always like, first season, everyone was like, what the fuck's going on? It's all over the place, but it's dope, entertaining, but I have no idea. And then when it gets to the end, you're like, oh, this was past, this was future, this is present, that. And I think I enjoyed that craziness because I was along for the ride. So I was just like, I don't know what's going on, but it's awesome. So I'm here.
Yeah.
That's where I landed. I definitely had no idea what was going on.
Yeah. There's a lot of fighting. Yeah. There's a lot of boobies. There's a lot of blood. And I was like, this is awesome. And then when it got to the end, it all came together. I was like, oh, okay. You could have just added in a Chiron at the bottom of like past.
Yeah. And I think that was the issue with season 1, because that first season is literally the stories, the short stories that Sapkowski used to build up to the novel story, which they combine all three. So the first novel is Blood of the Elves, and it opens with the scene where Sintra is burning and on fire and things like, and her Ciri is, the Black Knight is after Ciri. But before that, all those other episodes where you see it feels like they're all random. Those are the short stories that they turn into episodes, each one having a theme that builds towards the bigger arc. So destiny and him and his encounter with the princess who was, called evil because she was born a certain way, foreshadows his encounter with Ciri, who's also born a certain way, and people want to use her power, and she's got this fate hanging over her. So they didn't telegraph that well enough. And I think after I went back and read the books, and then I went and watched that, I was like, oh, okay, I see what you did there. But it wasn't done well enough for the general viewer. And I was a general viewer at first. I had only played the video games, and the video games are set after the books. So all the stuff, the only thing that happens in the books that carries over into the video games is the Wild Hunt thing. And so other than that, it was kind of all new to me. And so I was confused, just as confused as you guys were with the, what's going on in season 1. But in season 2, the narrative is like okay, now we see what that was all about.
Yep.
And season 3 is that turning point where things really change for the protagonists, all of them.
So like I was gonna say, like, so Josh hopping from 1 to 2, do you see like that growth from the different characters and the protagonists, or is it still? Did you still feel kind of like, I kind of know what's going on, but maybe not?
I think the latter. I think it definitely was like I have a better sense of what's going on, but I still have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
You definitely have your feet sort of seated in it a little better because they're not jumping around like they were before.
Right.
In season 1. Yeah. So it's all in the present. So it's a little easier to sort of get a grasp on. But yeah, having not started season 3 yet, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I have a question though. What would you say were the highlights of season? Well, you can spoil away. What would you say were the highlights of season 3 so far? Well, not so far because it's already done. But what would you say between volume 1 and volume 2?
You know what I would say? I would say the highlight for me was the big reveal of the big bad. I thought they did a good job in season 3 of the misdirection, and like because you're following along with the characters as they're going, and then you're seeing all the breadcrumbs, and their point of view. Mm-hmm. So you as they piece it together, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. And then when the reveal happens, you're like, oh, I didn't see that coming. And then you see the reasoning behind it, and I like that it wasn't a hollow reveal, because it was almost like when it gets revealed, you're like, oh, and then he talks about why, the reveal happens. You're talking about why he does it. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, like, and it goes along with the story, so you don't feel cheated. Like a lot of times, I think that's what happens with some of these big reveals where they try to do the misdirection. They essentially it's the SVU concept, the red herring for the first 17 minutes of the show, and then at minute 20, they're like, haha, this is the real bad guy.
Yeah, look at over there.
Yeah, but this one was like, oh shit, I actually do think. Well, I mean, that guy still sucks, but he's not like as sucky as the actual bad guy.
Yeah, and so I think I agree with that. And so I'll get a little more specific because, like I said, it's one of the things that directly from the book that when I read it, I loved it, and it changes the course of the story from that point going forward. I think I mentioned to Cam that on a low level, season 3 of The Witcher changes things in the same way that season 3 of Game of Thrones did for that story, the Red Wedding. So up until that point, so the big reveal, so there was 2 highlights for me. It all was in the second volume. I don't know why they split these things up.
It didn't make no sense.
It didn't need it. It didn't, wasn't, it was just, they just did it.
Yeah, but anyway. They could have just dropped it weekly or whatever instead of doing, like, it didn't make no sense. There was no real reason.
There was no rhyme or reason to it. But anyway, so in the second part, there's a big thing that happens, and the big thing is it's called in the book it's called the Thanad coup. So they're at all the mages find out that they have a conspirator in their ranks, someone who's working with Nilfgaard the whole time. And Nilfgaard is the ones in the black armor who burn Sintra and the primary antagonists of the story. And so what's revealed is that the sorcerer Vilgefortz was the one who all along was trying to capture Ciri and was working for Nilfgaard. And he has his own reasons. But the only reason I say him by name is because he and Geralt have a fight. And that fight is what changes everything. Because in order to understand the Witcher world, you gotta understand what Witchers are in that world. They are the badass Jedi. You cannot, if you defeat they're the Knights of the Seven. Like, they are the baddest warriors in the land. Like, and Geralt of Rivia, the White Wolf, is among the baddest. So Geralt, of course, and Vilgefortz, who's revealed as the evil villain, they have a clash, and Vilgefortz kicks his ass. Like,
yep,
not even close to a fight. And talks to him the whole time, explaining to him how he is going to use this moment to send a message to the continent.
Teachable moment.
To a teachable moment. Tells Geralt his arrogance will be his undoing. And it surely is.
And I liked it
because it changes everything.
Yeah, and I liked it too because it was almost like the wolf in sheep's clothing. That's like, I've been playing lame this whole time. The hardest thing about this whole ruse was me acting like I'm not powerful.
Right. He said it. Like the hardest thing was holding back.
Yep. And now that I don't have to do it. And the reason why it was cool too is because, you have almost a mage versus a fighter type of person. And so the cool part of that I liked about it.
Fantasy fight.
Yeah. And so the thing I liked about it the most was it was from something I've never seen before was the mage had his staff or whatever, but his staff would teleport and disappear as he was fighting. So it just, depending on what hand he was about to hit with, that's when the staff would appear. So he might start with one with the right, and he might block with the left, but all of a sudden the staff's over there. So it didn't matter how fast Garrett was; it was just there. So like the whole fight itself was actually super dope. And then him getting again, Geralt getting his ass whooped, which again you've never seen that before because he usually even if he gets a little bit of rough and tumble, might get a little dirt on him. He always come on top. And this one was like, nah, man. Like it was just all, and it's the point where he leaves them broken and battered, and he looks at them. And he's like, "All right, man. Well, I'll see you later.
I'm going to get Ciri. You failed. I'm going to get her." So he's like, and that's what I mean when I say it's a turning point, because up until that point, Geralt had never been bested like that,
right?
Especially not by a mage, a sorcerer. So he went into that thinking like, I'm gonna take you out. Ciri will be okay. And Vilgefortz showed him that was not the case. That was, I think that episode is called "Everyone Has a Plan Until You Get Punched in the Face."
Oh yeah.
That's the name. That's the name of the episode. And it is,
shout out to Mike Tyson.
Yeah, it is appropriate because Geralt had a plan until Vilgefortz punched his ass in the face. and so again, because Geralt has been bested and Ciri's on the run and Yennefer's trying to figure things out, the Brotherhood has collapsed. All those things happen in that one episode.
Yeah, and I think also too they also established a pretty good, because another thing I think that Witcher does really well is balance the race agnostic situation of their whole world. So there's no real, like, anybody can be anything. So you have Black people, Asian people, Latinos, and I like that when they introduce anyone that's a side, quote unquote, supporting or side character, they're there for a reason. They'll end up coming up somewhere later,
right?
Or they'll add it. So they do a good job of threading that needle so that there's no wasted screen time. And I think in terms of like the character development, that was actually really cool. And then also too showing the arrogance of the people that were so high and mighty for most of the 2 seasons. And when the reveal happens and they show that they're the ones that are basically the fools, they get they're just as shaken up as anybody else would be. And so then they have to figure out all that. And I think that was really, really dope. So they did a good job of like, it wasn't on some level of like Red Wedding type shit, but it was definitely on a level of like, let's shake up our world and these characters and have some consequences for these actions. And I talk about all the time, lack of consequences makes a boring show, but having some type of consequences is like, oh shit, this is, now you can see like, okay. And so like another good one was, when Ciri goes off on her own, something happens, she gets teleported into another area of the continent or whatever, and she's on her own, and she basically goes on an acid trip. But it's basically a vision quest, basically.
Yeah, and she gets that classic fever dream, not fever, but heat stroking, and she starts seeing things, and she gets a moment of clarity, and she uses fire magic. And that's forbidden, and so that scene set up a lot of stuff that's down the way as well, and so I just bring all that up to say I don't see what the problem is as far as these don't seem like people who hated Sapkowski books, because they are literally, the stakes are the same. The reveals, the big picture things happen the way they do in his book, or at least as close to that as they can for a televised or a television adaptation. They do a good job of pulling out the stuff and making the material and making it for TV, because I don't think all of it can be easily adapted. And I think that's what I was talking about when I criticized The Walking Dead and TV writers, is that you can take certain aspects of the adaptation and make it work for television, and it'll be idiosyncratic to TV, and it'll just work. And it might piss some people off, but at the same time, you have to do it because you can't take every page and verbatim put it on screen.
Yep. That's why it's an adaptation as opposed to a direct thing. And I think I've almost finished the first book, which is all the short stories. But having played the game, watching the show, and then reading the book, now I'm involved and invested. My visions are already how I've seen it already, and so it all makes sense in terms of that aspect of it. So I think and it's funny because I've seen I was reading some of the naysayers about why they didn't like it or whatever. But I was like, in my mind, I'm like, man, what? It kind of goes back to that. Are you not entertained? Like, what did you actually want from this? As opposed to, I liked Witcher because it was when in their first season, they established really quickly, they are not Game of Thrones and they are not Lord of the Rings. Just to let everybody know that real quick, this is not that. It is fantasy. We're having a lot of fun. It's not too deep, but it's a little bit, and you enjoy it. And I like. There's
a complex narrative, but it's not something that you can't really just like get into and have fun while you're seeing. Everything's about Siri, and as long as you keep that in mind, you can follow along.
Yeah. I think they do a good job of capturing the world of the game and the books while making it its own thing. Like you can, that's all you. But I mean, you can never please fans, right?
No,
you know what I mean. No. Like I mean. As we record this, Ashoka is premiering right now. And I promise you that Star Wars nerds are going to have a problem with something.
Yep.
You're going to see some backlash. You're going to see, Ashoka shouldn't have blown. Shut up. Like, just just like things, man, for shit's sake. Like, it's there. It's not going to be the exact thing that you had in your pea brain, as far as like what you think should and shouldn't happen on screen. And, her tunic should be dark brown instead of light brown. And just the makeup on her face, the makeup markings on her face don't match exactly to the character in the animated series. Just come on, man.
I just can't wait to see how people react to the live action Ezra.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. I know I'm going to lose my shit.
But
Ahsoka has already had her reaction.
But. Yeah, but you're right though. I think that's the thing where it's like, I think we're at a level now, and it's funny because I was reading or listening to a good pod about opinion fatigue. That's what it was talking about, and they were saying and they're talking about. Unfortunately, we live in a time now where everyone feels like they should comment on everything, and because of that. And we have the platforms to do something, right?
Yeah, this is the ills of social media right there. Yeah,
100%. And so the journalist was basically talking about that. And she wrote a really good piece in The Atlantic about it. But she was saying, the people that are in our age group, Generation X, millennials, whatever, we were very cognizant of what we would say online because we knew that it might affect, whether it's our job situation or whatever. And even now, we might say some of our takes, but we're not saying everything. The generations after us, so the generation after us, millennials specifically, but also the Gen Z folks and all them, like there's no quote unquote fear or even like thinking of a take, like
no,
and I laugh because like that makes total sense because I remember there was a Heisman Trophy candidate, and I'm not even sure if he won the Heisman or if he was just a candidate, but someone was talking to him, and then someone brought up a tweet from like 10 years ago or something like that, like, oh, do you regret saying this tweet 10 years ago? And dude was like, bro, I was 10 years old. But I was laughing because I was like, but that would make sense because if you grew up in this age of social, you would have a Twitter account at 12, 13 saying dumb shit about whatever Star Wars or whatever the fuck it is. And so I think that aspect of it now where it's like, if you don't like something, people feel like it's almost their obligation to go tell people that they don't like it so they can find other people who like it. And we can all not like it together.
well, that's what Reddit is. I mean, I Googled The Witcher season 3, and I saw so many Reddit feeds of, oh, they ruined it, and oh, it could have been this, and it could have been that, and I was like, okay, but it actually is pretty good the way it is. So
can y'all just like things? Like, can y'all just please like things? Like, God.
It's one thing if something is bad because of its execution, but it's another thing when you're just like hating on it because they changed a fantasy made up person
because Heimdall is black. Color.
Yeah, like that part is insane. So
that was my favorite.
Because it's bad, then okay, rip it apart. But if it's just that,
if it works, then just find something to like, man. Find something to love. Like, have love in your life, for God's sakes. But I mean, you know, that Heimdall was my favorite of all of those. Like Heimdall is not, you know, Idris Elba's a good actor, but you know, like he's not Nordic. Okay, so you know he shouldn't be playing Heimdall. And then Idris bodied it, and everybody shut up. Everybody shut up.
I mean,
it was beautiful.
It is the same with you know, my comedian homie was saying he has a joke where he talks about how based off a real story where like he was talking about the Little Mermaid. He watched it and he's like, oh, it wasn't that bad. I just enjoyed it. Watching my daughter, it was cool. And then somebody hopped in his comments on some like, well, you know, I don't think it's really accurate because how can a melanated person be get all the sun rays to get their skin to be that way if they're all the way down in the deeps of the ocean? And my friend was like, hey, hold on. So you're taking racism all the way to the ocean?
It's ridiculous, man. It just doesn't make any sense.
But
like going back yourself talking.
Yeah, exactly. But then going back, like you said, to Witcher, where it's just like, and you know, and again, we're all geeks and about our own situations and things that we like. And like say, for instance, I'm in a comic book group. We talk about the comic book stories and some of the dumb shit that happens over there. But again, it's more like we're still reading it and we're still consuming it.
Yeah, you're still going to plow through and finish it because there's always another story.
Yep, exactly. And I think that's the thing where it's like now, before it was you had your friends that you can bitch to. Now you have you could throw it out into the ether,
the whole ass world,
and you can find other and I can be other melancholy, sad souls that are mad about that one thing that you really love that apparently somebody bitched and has ruined your life or something.
Yeah, I remember
when Voyager first premiered. And there was a Black Vulcan, first Black Vulcan probably ever anywhere. And people were like, well, just come on, man. Come on. Just enjoy the thing. And Tuvok wound up being one of the best things about Voyager.
Yep.
Just like things, man. Or don't. And just shut up about it.
Going back to The Witcher, I'm looking at the cast, and it is a extremely diverse cast. Like you look at this cast.
That's a problem for people, D'Angelo.
It's amazing. But
it's awesome. And I was gonna say before the one cool thing I liked about The Witcher, the two good things I liked about it was it was a very diverse cast in a way that didn't throw its diversity in your face. These people just exist in this world. It doesn't happen to be a black elf. It doesn't happen to be a blah, 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 blah. They are in the world. They exist. This is exactly what it is. Ain't nobody tripping that they different color skin or whatever.
How can I be racist? How can I be racist if no one is divided? If everyone's the same and no one points out that there's a black elf or a woman in power, or how can I be racist and sexist and bigoted? I can't be me. I want to be me.
And go ahead. Go ahead, G.
Excuse me. I was just gonna say because on the topic of things that were really cool in the 2-part season 3. One of the other things that I really liked was the whole fight between the mages and the Nilfgaardians and the squirrels, the elves or whatever. And when the lead, the rectoress, Tissaia de Vries, does the spell of the last resort, like that was pretty. It was a great visual. I mean, it looked amazing. You know what I'm talking about, Cam? Like when she's up on the tower and like it's like when you talk about when your show is about characters who perform magic and in a world where magic is possible, that is the kind of visual you want to create. Like a powerful sorcerer standing on a tower using the lightning of the sky to vanquish her enemies. Like that's dope stuff. And I think
I'm just hyped somebody was fighting squirrels.
Well, I was gonna say too is like the other cool thing was the power dynamics of gender is also another flat thing. And so it's like it didn't really matter who women or men or this or that and blah 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 blah, but everything was fluid and it flowed. And so you had power for women, you had power for men, you had interchangeable and all that kind of stuff. Shout out to Philippa, her and Cassie Clare. Is that her Cassie Clare, gorgeous and awesome, and like
and she bodies the role of Philippa Eilhart. I don't care what anybody says.
Good, and it's deceiving, it's seductive, but it's also powerful and understated. And on top of that, going back to the hair situation, hair is always on point. But she looks great. But I like that in the Witcher specifically, all the women in the show aren't like, I am powerful because I'm a woman. It's I am powerful because I'm a character that's powerful. it's
pretty much.
And that's a thing. That's a thing that gets lost on a lot of stuff. We talk about that all the time, whether, on the pod or privately as we're watching stuff. Like a character can't just be the thing that they are. You have to sort of put a stamp on the fact that they're the thing that they are. There has to be this diatribe about how, I'm a woman and so therefore I have to blah, 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 blah. Just be it. You don't have to force it. You don't have to spoon feed it. You don't have to let the audience show, don't tell, man. You don't have to spoon feed the audience into the idea that a woman can be powerful. There's much more there if you're able to show that character being the thing that you want them to be. You don't have to write dialogue saying, that this person is the thing that they are.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's probably just the burden of representation across the board, even when it's with, Black identity politics or Latino identity politics. It happens in that form when it leaks into the storytelling and it just isn't showing individuals existing in their world and occupying the space, but also the voices of whatever their identity politics or gender politics might be.
Yeah, and I think it's a cool aspect of it because they did a good job of keeping that. Like again, their primary focus was telling a good story with interesting characters and some kick-ass magic and fight scenes. But then how they painted the story was really, really good. And so it's like it actually, which is funny because I never watched the full series, but Bridgerton had the same type of thing where they're basically race agnostic, so anybody could be anybody. And they're not accounting for where this person came from, what continent. It was literally just casted and it made the cast more of a cornucopia of types of people. And it was actually kind of fun. And it's set in New England time at that time. Victorian.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, but it just makes it fun because you're just like, oh, this is kind of just cool. People are just existing. And I like that. And then something like this in fantasy where most people have been used to fantasy being set in, European situations or that aspect of it. So they all or Nordic or, that's and in their minds, like, wait until we get, an Asian King Arthur or something, or like something to that effect. And so I think that I like that when they just do race agnostic and it's a fantasy, because it could be that, and I think that's the most interesting.
It's a bunch of people, not a black guy or an Asian guy.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's what fantasy is. It's fantasy. It's imagination.
Yep.
The last thing I would like to talk about as far as The Witcher goes is this season is also bittersweet. The main reason is because it's the last with Henry Cavill.
Deep sigh.
And I just don't have as much confidence as the Witcher producers do that. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be like another year or maybe a year and a half before the fourth season comes, but it's weird when you replace the protagonist in that way. I mean, there's examples of it being done, but not almost the exact same. I don't know. This.
Yeah, it's gonna be a hard sell, man. I think I'm at a point now where like we already know that Henry Cavill is not being Superman anymore. We also know that we have the writer strikes going on. It's almost like however many months. So
Warhammer is not happening.
Yeah,
Warhammer is not happening.
So we all know Henry Cavill he ain't working right now. So what up, dog? Like, you know,
dude, I do.
Well, they already. Go ahead, bro. Sorry.
I was just gonna say I think that it's probably not too late, and I honestly don't think that they probably ruled it out yet. Because if you think about it, people have already talked about not watching the show.
Yeah,
literally talked about like this is it. They're done with it. Yeah. They don't want to. They don't. And you already have that big contingent of people who are really watching it to hate it because of all the things, but they like Henry Cavill as Geralt. That is the one thing that across the board everybody agrees on. And so they're taking that away and adding Liam Hemsworth. And with all due respect to him, I don't know what he might pull it off and be a great Geralt, but it just seems like a big gambit. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I mean, there are instances of shows going on through to completion with the lead actor being replaced. What was I thinking of? Spartacus being being the most prominent one that comes to mind for me.
That's a good example.
And I mean,
bro.
I mean, it was such a big deal because the show came out of nowhere. I don't think anybody expected it to do what it did in terms of numbers. And after the first season, it was a shoo-in to get renewed. And then the lead actor was stricken with cancer, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And so they believed in this guy so much that they went ahead and did a prequel and had him do VO for it while he was recovering. And they did a whole season as a prequel, waiting for him to get better. And so it was they took a year off. They did the prequel. Then they took a year to film this. I think somewhere in between starting production on the third season, he passed away. He took a turn for the worse and passed away. Rest in peace. I forget the guy's name, unfortunately. But he bodied it, and people were like, this is done. There's no way that you can get anybody to replace this dude. And sure enough, they did. And it was good. It was the same character. It was still deeply. They got a replacement for the guy who played Spartacus. And it was okay. It was good. It very obviously was not as good as the original actor.
Yeah,
but it was good enough.
But that's also, I want to say that's a bit of apples and oranges, and here's why. It's the same, but it's different because I think that with Cavill, fans are taking it a little more personal because they cast it. They feel like they casted him like he was the chosen one. It's the first example. Or not first, but like one of those examples.
He was the main guy. Like he campaigned. They campaigned for it. He campaigned for it. Like it was the perfect melting together. It was like the Rosario Dawson thing for Ahsoka. It was the same thing. Like they campaigned for it. She got wind of it and was like, "Well, I'm down. Y'all down?" And Lucasfilm snagged her to do it. So yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. It's very different in that regard.
That's the only difference, and that's the reason why I think it won't have that same still punch that Spartacus continued to have, because again, you have that, you know how fans are, to take shit personal. And so, now you have, there's already the narrative that he's been screwed around so many times, and like to have him to not be the Witcher now, oh wow, they're gonna really, but I think he's been gracious about it. So I think even if they don't bring him back,
he's
Liam Hemsworth, well, he walked away. It wasn't like they just fired him. Like
So he has no choice but to be a pro about it. You know what I mean? Like, it was what it was. You made you took a swing.
Career decisions.
Yeah, you took a swing. It was arguably still the smart swing to make, but you missed, and and unfortunately, in one swing you struck out twice. Way it goes. You know what I mean? Like, he's not going to be hurting for work. He'll get more work. He'll get there are other shows and other movies for him to do. He'll be fine. I think putting myself in the place of that kind of fan, I'm not that big of a Witcher fan, but I don't know. Let's say Anson Mount gets replaced as Pike next season on Strange New Worlds. That might piss me off. that might upset me a bit, because I'm pretty attached to that guy. I mean, he's obviously not the same level of star as Henry Cavill, but he's an established actor already before he took on Strange New World, and when he came on as Pike on Discovery, people were like, "Oh, give that man a show." So would I be upset to the point where I'm not watching Strange New Worlds anymore? Highly unlikely, because it's a very well written show.
Yeah. And then I think that's a better way to put it, where it's like, it's the same with the, in the early days of the MCU when they did their casting, right? The casting would get announced and everybody be like, you mean the Human Torch guy? He's going to be Captain America? Oh, this is going to work.
Right.
And then they see it, and then they're like, oh, okay, Captain America.
Okay, that works. And now you can't picture anybody else playing Captain America.
Yeah. So I'm as much, I enjoy the show. I enjoy Henry Cavill as Geralt as well. But I think I would, if the fourth season is the final season, I'm going to see it to the end, because I've come this far and I've enjoyed all of it. So, again, I'm not of the same ilk of the fandom that gets all, butt hurt when shit doesn't go their way. So you're
not gonna fill out a petition?
Nope, absolutely not. But
I will. The fourth season definitely will not be the last. If they keep on track the way they're going, they got to do at least 3 more.
Interesting. And honestly, I'm kind of in it. Like, there's some fun stuff that they're going with it, and I think, let's see what happens with Baby Hemsworth. Maybe he'll surprise us all. I think I think at this point now, when it comes down to casting and stuff, I'm always more like, let's see how it goes. Because even, to be honest, say with like Ashoka is a good example. The Rosario situation, I like the imagery of it, but I was like, I wonder how it's actually going to work out on film.
Right. How is she going to actually do in the role?
Yeah. And in the role, you're like, oh shit. Okay, let's go. So I think the premature gripes for Baby Hemsworth getting it is, well founded, because, again, this is a beloved actor and character. But again, we accept a new Spider-Man. We accept a new James Bond. Look, maybe this is going to be that same level of situation.
It happens so much.
To quote the homie Eric Mormon, shout out to a friend of the pod, steady listener. He'll always, even with me, he'll always remind me, just wait and see, bro. Like, just calm down. Just can we see what happens? You don't know. And that's 100% the truth. Liam Hemsworth could possibly be it's as unlikely as that statement is.
Yep.
We could all be surprised, and he could be a better Geralt than Henry Cavill ever was. As unimaginable as that appears right now, you still gotta wait and see. You don't know. You don't know how he's going to be in the role. So
Nah, you're right, and I think Made Up, he probably looks more like the game version of Geralt.
Yeah, exactly. I can see that. Yeah, so
that's fine. I mean, we'll see what happens. I'm still gonna watch it season 4 because I've watched this far. Why stop now?
Yeah, and I'm in it, and so
unless it's totally bad.
Exactly. Like if they keep the level of storytelling that they're doing, and then Baby Hemsworth is in it, cool.
It'll be fine.
Exactly.
It won't be Henry Cavill, and that's just all it will be. It's just
So all right. So now to put a point on most of this and all of this, only Josh has watched Oppenheimer, and he has tickets to go watch the 70 millimeter version later. But one man review. Josh, take it away. Oppenheimer, 3 hours of your life. Was it worth it?
It was garbage. No, no, it was fine. It was better than fine. Let me not undersell it at all. It was a really well done biopic, expertly done. I make no bones about the fact. I'm not trying to hide the fact that I am a big Christopher Nolan fan. I'm not as big as D'Angelo, but I'm a big Christopher Nolan fan, and it wasn't the stereotypical Christopher Nolan movie where there's certain stylized things that you can sort of expect. I mean, he shot it like a Christopher Nolan movie, but I mean, you don't necessarily sit down and look at a shot and go, oh yeah, that's totally a Nolan thing. Like it's just, and I defy any film school nerd to do that. Like it's not that deep, but it is very much a smartly told story. Cillian Murphy is absolutely going to get is that his name? Cillian Murphy? The lead actor?
Yeah, Cillian Murphy.
Yeah, Cillian Murphy. Yeah. He is absolutely going to get at least nominated for there's gonna be multiple nominations for this thing. Lead actor, supporting actor and actress, cinematography absolutely is going to get an award. I'm calling that right now. It's an expertly done with production design, the whole bit. And the audio, Jesus, yeah, probably is going to get it's probably going to get a nod. I don't think it deserves necessarily an award because of the way that Christopher Nolan insists on recording audio. Say again.
I said blasphemy.
Oh no, it's terrible. I hate it. Because he uses Nat sound on set, and that drives me insane. And it's recorded really low all the time. But like that's the one nitpick amongst a bunch of things. If you go to see it at halfway decent theater, or you have a decent home theater in your crib, like you'll be fine. But I mean, just top to bottom, it's a really well made film. I see it walking away with a bunch of awards. But what I find what's interesting is how Warner Brothers sort of timed the release of Barbie to sort of middle finger Nolan for leaving for leaving them. That's an interesting little tidbit that I found out recently.
That's pretty
yeah, it's hilarious, but it's also wildly petty, and it dates back to the pandemic with them with Warner Brothers releasing Tenet both on streaming and in theaters.
That's right.
And everybody basically, yeah. So he left. He left because Nolan basically wanted the movie to be released in theaters, and Warner Brothers turned around.
He was like,
Granted, I think the compromise could have been to hold off on releasing it if they really wanted to do all of that. And Nolan was really, had a hard on about it not being released on streaming. It is a theater film, and I'm a firm believer in films that are theater films being seen in the theater. That's the only way you're going to keep movie theaters alive. So,
well, technically, every film should be a film that's shown in the cinema.
Hell no, not every film. Not every film.
No, but what I'm saying is that if that film, to Nolan's point, is like you want, he makes all of his films to be shown
sure. Yeah. I thought you were talking about broad spectrum. Yes. In
No.
all Nolan films are movie theater movies. Yes. I thought you meant like grand spectrum, like broad spectrum.
In a
like,
perfect world, but
I did not need to see Black Widow's movie. As much as I enjoyed it, I did not need a theater for that movie.
No, I mean in the perfect world. I'm being sarcastic, obviously.
Oh, okay. I was like, not every day. I disagree with that vehemently. But yeah, no, you're right. Yes, you're 100% right. Proper cinema films definitely require a proper cinema. Yes, 100%. And this movie is and so Oppenheimer is no exception. Standout. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say, like, I agree with that because I remember I watched. What did I watch? Oh, I missed Fury Road in the theaters.
Oh yeah.
But then I got to see it on a projector, like at a large scale at the very least, with a good sound system. Again, doesn't take away from being in the theater, but if that was my first example of watching it, it actually helped it because I was like, oh my god, it just looked gorgeous, and then
it's cinematic.
Sound wise, is like, what is going? Like, it was great. So I really wish I would have went to the cinema to see that.
That was bananas. That was probably one of my favorite movie theater movies of the last probably 10 years.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah. I have a lot of favorites, but it's one of my I would top 5 of that.
I agree. I think my favorite was Interstellar, even though it was very long. I still really enjoyed seeing that.
Interstellar was brilliant. Yeah.
And 70 millimeter. But I agree with you. Mad Max, Fury Road. It's the scale of it. I mean, that's the reason why you have to see it in that capacity, because it's meant to be seen and experienced. You're meant to experience all of that at once, not being shorthanded on the audio, not being shorthanded on the visual. It's supposed to hit you all at once, and you be taken into that world, into the scale of that. Because I've heard, and Josh, you've seen it, so you know, but I've heard the atomic bomb scene is just like no other. Like, it's just like nothing it's almost like you can legit say it's nothing you've seen before.
Nothing you've seen before, and certainly nothing you've heard before. Yes. And so there's a recurring, that aside, there's this recurring sound effect thing where it's like, it sounds like a room full of people stomping and clapping. And it sounds like, it seems as though it's the anxiety of Oppenheimer in certain moments. And then you realize that they're playing over and over and over right after they successfully pop off the bomb. And all the scientists are in this room, and they're in bleachers, and they're all stomping their feet and clapping their hands, cheering Oppenheimer as he comes out to make a speech about the success of the test. It's genius sound design. It's just, I can't, from that standpoint, I can't say enough about that movie. It's, I don't want to, I hesitate to limit Nolan and say that was his, as far as biopics go, probably his magnum opus. I don't think he'll ever do another one like that, because it was just, I don't see it. But
no, I don't see him doing another biopic. He'd always talk. I think Oppenheimer was one that I think I had heard him talk about that before he made it. I think that was one of those passion projects. But
for sure.
But yeah, I seriously doubt he'll do another, because he's just not that type of filmmaker, right? So he's not gonna, just like, you'll probably never see him do another superhero type of film.
Because he's been there, done that 3 times over at this point.
But he also did it on his own terms. Batman, the Dark Knight trilogy cannot be compared to anything else, any other superhero story or film.
Right.
There's no comparing those films to anything else. And that's sort of the type of filmmaker that Nolan has always been. You probably can't compare Oppenheimer to any other biopic from any figure set during that time, whether it be, you can't compare it, because he makes it so that it's not compared to anything else. It's an experience in and of itself, just like Interstellar, just like even Inception, and Tenet.
Oh, yeah.
These are all film, and that's what I was saying about the whole, his films are made to be in the movie theater. So Warner Brothers are never going to win that argument with him, because they won it because they have they're the gatekeeper.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, they're the ones who make the call, right?
Right. But he was proven right, because Tenet didn't go over as well as it should have, and it would have if it had a full theatrical release, theatrical run.
Yeah,
but it was overall it was a really well done film. I have some reservations about going to sit through another 3 hours to watch it in 70 millimeter, but the technician in me absolutely insists that I go see it in 70 millimeter, just to satisfy that part of my brain. Knowing that that's lingering out there, and not seeing it in 70 millimeter, that was like Dunkirk, same deal. Dunkirk, I was like, I have to go see this in 70 millimeter, even though I wasn't thoroughly impressed. I don't know if it was the seating angle, but I was not wowed or impressed or any. I mean, I enjoyed aspects of the different stories that they told that were told in that movie, but overall, I just kind of shrugged when I was done. I am like of Dunkirk. The impression, huh?
No, I just said I like Dunkirk, but I thought
it was cool, but it was cool. Shrug. It wasn't.
I like what he was doing with it. I like that there wasn't a lot of dialogue.
Yes. So like I said, there are aspects of it that I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed. I don't think I enjoyed the casting, because all of those dudes, every last one of those soldiers looked exactly alike. Like the 3 or 4 main characters that they follow that were the infantry, storming the beach. All 3 of those guys looked alike. I couldn't tell them apart.
Yeah.
Same here.
But like you said, I think it goes back to again, are you going to take another 3 hours of your life to go see something again? And for yours,
I am
from like you said, an audio situation, and for stuff that, and again, we actually enjoy the cinema. And we want, if it's made in 70 millimeter, then we need to go see it in 70 millimeter. If it's a IMAX film, we should probably go see it in IMAX. And so I think since we actually enjoy those aspects of it, and we respect the creators of making it in those formats, then it makes sense to go see them when you can at that level, because then it's a full experience.
Yeah. And I would say for Nolan, I was just going to say really quick, I think for Nolan, it is really him. He's trying to get that across the reason you have to see these things in the theater is because you have to respect all the artists that put their hands on it. It's not just the writer and the director. It's the audio, the sound guy, the audio engineers, the mixers, the editors. You have to experience that by being in the theater.
Yeah.
100%. Yes, that's absolutely accurate. And there is a certain craftsmanship to how Nolan constructs movies, both in production and in post-production, that I don't want to say is unparalleled, because there are other people who can duplicate what he does. But I think the combination of things, like how he does what he does, using the same tools that everybody else has, is just unparalleled. Like and that's what makes him an auteur. Like like I said, just everybody has the same tools that he has at his disposal, but the way that he uses them, the way that he shot Oppenheimer, the way that the audio was recorded, as much as I don't like it, I will freely admit that it is a stylized way that you have someone record audio, that you mix the audio. If I was mixing it, the first thing I would do is ramp up the dialogue. He doesn't do that. He keeps it natural to how it was recorded in the room on the day. Even the performance that he got out of Robert Downey Jr., one of the things that he told Downey to do was, he was like, yo, you have a very specific skill set that you deploy in every film that you're in. You are not going to use any of those skills. And when you see it, you'll see what he means when he says that. And it is absolutely I don't want to say career defining, but career changing performance for Robert Downey Jr. I have a hard time believing that someone else will get the best supporting actor unless it's someone in that film. Unless it's like Matt Damon, which I doubt. I don't see that either, because he just there was something about the performance, the marching orders that he gave Downey, and how he was able to sort of enact what Nolan told him. When you see it, I'm telling you, it is. First of all, you're not gonna like his character. Number one, like every time you see Downey on the screen in every other movie, he's your best bud. You want him. You want to go get a drink with him. You want to hug him. You want to give him a noogie. Like, he's your guy, and he is not that guy in this movie. He's absolutely not that guy.
I'm gonna like him a lot.
Oh, you're gonna love it, bro. It's brilliant. He's. I mean, just everybody. Not just for your nihilistic tendencies, but just in general, it's a brilliant performance. And it's brilliant because, and Downey even said this in an interview, he brought tools to bear that he didn't know he had. He usually relies on being glib and goofy and, with the quick quip and, it's a lot of swift banter, and none of that is at play in this film. Nolan strips all of that away from him. And I mean, the makeup and the glasses and the haircut and the way that they, that they trim his goatee and beard. He's not, he doesn't look like Tony Stark. He looks like Strauss. He looks exactly like Strauss.
And I think that's a good thing especially for him at this point, where he took a good 20 years within one character, and then now he gets to kind of branch out to other stuff.
Yeah.
And be those. I mean, like, we all like when the prototypical good guy character actor always plays gets to play a villain or something like that, because every time they do, they have so much fun doing stuff that's outside of what they know everyone thinks they are, and that's when they can have
fun. And Downey was like, it wasn't just a matter of playing a different character. Like, he really he stresses how much he was robbed of the things that he usually leans on by Nolan in that film. And, I can't stress enough how much you can look. If you've watched Robert Downey Jr. in other films, you see him stretch in this movie. You absolutely see him reach. And he grabs it. He absolutely grabs it. He bodies the role that he was given. And that's not to take away from the other actors, like Emily Blunt, our girl, oh my gosh, Natasha's sister, Florence Pugh. She kills it.
She was in that.
She kills it, bro. Oh my gosh.
That's a Nolan film right there. All those stars in there, and I didn't. Only person I knew for sure was in that film was Cillian Murphy. I didn't know any of the rest of the cast.
Yeah, Matt Damon was in there as well, and
definitely didn't know he was in there.
Yeah, it's studded. It's super studded, bro. It's heavy.
That speaks to Nolan as the director. He keeps film, cinema in perspective, and he brings out the best in everybody.
Yeah, and this is I would say arguably the best example of that since Heath Ledger. Like, he really does a good job of. There's no wasted screen time, as is all of his films. As with all of his films, there's no fluff. There's tons of exposition, but in the way that Nolan uses exposition to move you from point A to point B, as far as the narrative is concerned. And just, the characters, when the character is on screen and speaking, there's a reason for it. And it either enhances the thing that's happening currently or moves you to the next thing. I want to say his best movie to date. 3 hours and all. It's arguably his best work, in my opinion. With a film, considering he's done so many heavy action oriented films, there's no action. Nobody even throws a punch. Nobody smacks anybody. Like, you know what I mean? A fly does not get swatted in this movie. And I would argue. Say again?
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
Yeah, and I would argue. I can't think of anything in D'Angelo. You're a closer follower of his filmography than I am, but I can't think of anything that was better in terms of just a raw film, just raw cinema. I can't think of anything that was better that he's done that's better than this.
It sounds like it sounds like you fitting that in from the perspective of scale and scope. I think in terms of raw cinema, he's done some things that possibly might be better, but I don't know. I can't say. I'll have to get back to you after I see the film, but I can see that being the case because at the same time he's at the peak of his powers, right? So like it's not like this isn't Nolan from 2005. This is Christopher Nolan after Dunkirk and Tenet and the Dark Knight trilogy and Inception. You know, this isn't the same one that's coming off the heels of Memento and Insomnia and The Following and all of his early works that were The Prestige, that were just focused psychological storytelling, psychological, even kind of too small a word to describe those films, but yeah, I can see that. I guess now you have me looking forward even more to seeing the film. I'm ashamed I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. The only reason that I'm going to see it again is because it was that good. Well, aside from the fact that I want to I want to do my technical watch down, I'll put it to you this way. If it wasn't that good, there's no way you'd get me in the theater for another 3 hours.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
I'm about to blow 6 hours on this thing total in my life.
For the cinema.
Well, comfort yourself in this. You sat through damn near 3 hour superhero films that don't even touch that.
You hear me?
That through a 4 hour. I was about to say, that through a 4 hour Justice League, I could sit through 6 hours of Oppenheimer easily.
You can sit through a 6 hour Nolan film, and you sit through 15 minutes of a Zack Snyder.
And on that note, my final word will be on Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon trailer just dropped. And I will say, with no sarcasm, that it looks interesting. And that was all I will say.
But of course it looks interesting. Hold on. Let's back up.
I give you a segue. I gave you a segue with that Zack Snyder comment. I should have said he who should not be named.
Let's dial that back for a second. We know that Zack Snyder is capable of amazing things visually. So he can give you a bunch of garbage for a trailer and it'll look great. The trailer will always look at Sucker Punch. Sucker Punch being the best example I can always give you. Sucker Punch looked amazing. It was just an absolute mess of a movie.
That movie did not, that trailer did. Maybe it's because at that point I kind of had him pegged. But
you already tuned out?
Yeah, I was like, man, this looks interesting from, okay, you got, because that's the one with the girls run in the
it's a concept artist
in the schoolgirl outfit. Yeah.
It's a concept artist.
Okay. I'm like, yeah, like that. It's got some cool visual concepts, but it looked like it was a hollow nothingness, and that's why I've never seen that film.
and I say that because I resisted the urge to count how many slow-mo shots that they showed in the trailer.
Oh, did you? Oh, so you're gonna ignore all the things that make a Zack Snyder film a Zack Snyder film in the trailer.
Yes, sir.
Oh,
look at that. So
okay.
Rebel Moon is Netflix. He's got that deal where they're like, he's making everything all kinds.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I'll watch it because it's going to be visually, no matter what, the visuals and the action sequences are going to be what they are. And
new cam. It's a new cam out here. Look at this. Look at that. Look, no hate for who shall not be named. I would like to show this as growth.
I think I can find better things to do with my time than that.
I mean, I think going into it, the problem with Sucker Punch is I didn't know what I was walking into. And I think if I knew what I was walking into, I'd have been fine.
Yeah.
And so I think knowing now that Zack Snyder is the type of director that he is, and he tends to put together what he tends to put together,
that's fair.
I can walk into this with no illusions about it being, a coherent or cohesive narrative or well written or any of those things. It's just going to be. Listen, I've turned on movies just to watch the fight sequences.
Yeah,
I will turn on Disney Plus if I get the mood to watch a lightsaber duel, and I will fast forward to a lightsaber duel, and then I will turn it off.
That's a good point.
I'll do that.
Yeah. So that in mind, I can go see a Zack Snyder movie knowing that I'm not going to care fuck all about his story, his narrative, or any of the things that chain that movie together. I'm going to see great visuals. I can bank on that no matter what else happens in that movie.
Yep. No,
and that's all I'm going. And that is the only reason I will watch it. Look, what was the Ryan Reynolds movie? The Michael Bay Ryan Reynolds movie that came out during the pandemic on Netflix.
Something underground.
So whatever that was, we knew what we were going into when we watched that.
Yeah, it was.
We weren't looking for no plot. We were looking for explosions, and there are more explosions than any other Michael Bay movie that I can think of in all of existence.
Yeah.
So you know what you were walking into. You were going to get Ryan Reynolds pretty much not having a script. He's not having a script and ad-libbing everything, and explosions. You got both of those things.
Yeah.
You walked out, movie done.
So I will close this loop with a quote for one of my friends after seeing the trailer of Rebel Moon. He said, and I quote, "So the formula is Star Wars plus Harry Potter plus Game of Thrones plus girl power plus diversity. Got it." End quote. And that kind of sums it all up. So,
well,
you're not getting no Snyder hate from me today. I'll just say I put also just for the listeners, I dropped the Rebel Moon trailer into our mutual chat with all of us on it, the Blerdlines chat. And it was crickets.
I skipped it. I saw Rebel Moon and I was like, oh, the Zack Snyder movie? I got other stuff I need to do.
I only know Rebel Moon by name, so it was never something that I thought I would probably watch just because I don't really know what it is. But
look for, everybody out there, look forward for the one-man review. We're out here.
I mean, I'll see it. It won't be a one-man review. I won't leave you on an island. I'll probably see it myself. Just
we can.
Like I said, I know what I'm walking into.
We might need a segment called "Cam and Josh watches movies that D won't."
Yeah, you could probably have a whole good list of things on there, but I have those things that I watch and I know what I'm going into. I know they're bad. It's just Zack Snyder. I'm not. There's some things I might watch, but Rebel Moon is probably not one of them. And the last thing I watched from him, which confirmed that I can't do it, otherwise I'll get a headache, which was the Army of the Dead.
Oh, nah.
And that one was just really weird.
Yeah.
And I almost vomited while I was watching it. Like had vertigo. Like it was just
Army of the Dead was not. Woo, yeah.
Couldn't do it.
So that's my last time that I gave him a shot. I'm like, okay, it's a zombie movie. Like you said, Josh, know what I'm walking into. I walked into it. I walked out nauseous. That's all I'm saying. I had to drink Pepto-Bismol that day.
Yikes. Man.
I mean, we don't make the movies, folks. We just watch them.
I like that. I like that a lot. That's what. I put
that on a t-shirt. Blerdline merch coming soon.
Dude, that
Blerdline merch coming soon to an online store near you.
Yeah, that's oh man, he who shall not be named. Yeah, that's all I can say about that, guys.
That's all I got to say.
That is all I got to say. It's going.
We're done here.
Yep. And Yeah, that's all I can say about that. So, but yeah,
you got your out point there, Cam.
So once again, everybody, thanks for listening. It's all jokes. We have fun, and we'll see you guys later. Peace.
Later.